Have you ever stopped to think about all the math that's just happening around us all the time? I mean, from figuring out a tip at a restaurant to planning a road trip, we're all constantly doing these complex calculations. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and take a look at the really elegant, hidden math that makes our everyday lives tick.
Seriously, just think about your day so far. Did you have to split a bill? Maybe figure out how much time you had left to finish a project? Or even just time your morning commute perfectly? Every single one of those decisions was powered by a little bit of math, humming away silently in the background.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the absolute basics, the building blocks, multiplication and division. Then I'm going to show you a really cool mental math shortcut. After that, we'll get into what happens when numbers don't divide so cleanly, we'll explore how we find a fair share using averages, and then we'll wrap it up by seeing how all this math keeps us moving. All right, let's dive right in with the fundamentals. Honestly, these two things, multiplication and division, they're like two sides of the same coin. And pretty much everything else in math is built right on top of them. Okay, let's talk multiplication. At its heart, it's really just a super fast way to do addition. When you multiply two numbers, which we call factors, the answer you get is called the product. So when you see 4 times 3, that's just a shortcut for saying add 4 groups of 3. And the product, 12, is your grand total. So if multiplication is all about putting groups together, division is its exact opposite. It's about breaking a big number apart into smaller, equal groups. It answers questions like, how many groups can I make? Or how much goes into each group? And to really get division, you gotta know the language. The big number you start with, the one you're splitting up, that's the dividend. The number you're dividing it by is the divisor. The main answer you get is called the quotient. And that little bit that's sometimes left over, that's our friend, the remainder. Getting these terms down is gonna be super important for what we talk about next.
Okay, we've got the basics down. Now for the fun stuff. What if I told you there's a simple mental trick that can make some pretty tricky multiplication problems, well, a whole lot easier? It's all about doubling and halving. So take a look at this, 14 times 30. Now you could try to do all the carrying and adding in your head, but there's a much slicker, much more elegant way to get to the answer. Here's the secret sauce. The strategy is so simple. You just double one of the numbers and cut the other one in half. And the craziest part, the final answer, the product, stays exactly the same. You're basically just transforming a tough problem into a much friendlier one. Let me walk you through it. You take the 14, you chop it in half. Boom, you get 7. Then you take the 30 and you double it. That gives you 60. So now your new problem is just 7 times 60. That's so much easier to figure out in your head, right? The answer is 420. Same result, way less mental gymnastics. So we've seen how we can build numbers up with multiplication, but let's circle back to division and look at what happens when things, well, when they don't break apart perfectly. This is where division gets really interesting. Oh yeah, you probably remember these bad boys from school, right? Big, kind of intimidating long division problems. In a perfect math world, every single one of these ends with a nice, clean 0 at the bottom. But the real world isn't always so neat and tidy, is it? More often than not, when you divide one number by another, you end up with a little something left over. And that's the remainder. And our source material gives us a perfect real-world scenario for this. Let's say our hiker, Suraj, is trekking 136 kilometers over 11 days. So to find out how far he walks each day, we divide 136 by 11. Now, we get a quotient of 12, but it's not a perfect split. There's a little left over. And here is the crucial point. That leftover bit, that remainder, it's not just some mathematical oopsie. It's actual, real-world information. In this case, it represents 4 kilometers of his journey. If you just ignore it, you're not telling the whole story. That remainder matters. You know, this whole idea of dividing things up into equal parts leads us perfectly into our next topic, averages. What does it actually mean to find the average of something? Well, it's all about finding the fair share. I absolutely love this visual. It shows someone working a different number of hours each day. The dots are all uneven. Finding the average is like imagining you can take all those hours, throw them into one big pot, and then deal them back out so every day has the exact same amount. That equal amount, that's your average. And the math to find that fair share is actually really simple. You just add up all the individual amounts you have,
and then you divide that total by the number of amounts you started with. See? We're using division again, but this time to find that one single number that can represent the whole group. All right, for our last section, let's put all this math into motion. The relationship between speed, distance, and time is probably one of the most common ways we use these ideas every day, a lot of times without even realizing it. And the formula is super straightforward. Your speed is simply the distance you traveled divided by the time it took you to travel it. There it is again, division, right at the heart of how we understand our physical world. So let's use a quick example. Say a car travels 350 kilometers and it takes 5 hours to do it. We have our two key ingredients. We have our distance and we have our time.
So what do? We divide the distance, 350 kilometers, by the time, 5 hours. And that gives us a speed of 70 kilometers per hour. Simple, elegant, and incredibly useful.
And that really brings us full circle. Whether it's a mental multiplication trick or calculating the speed of a car, these mathematical ideas are not just abstract rules you learn in a classroom. They are real, practical tools for making sense of the world all around us.
So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. Now that you can see these basic building blocks, where else do they show up in your life? What are the hidden equations that you are solving every single day without even thinking about it? Because once you start looking for them, trust me, you'll see them absolutely everywhere. Thanks for digging into the numbers with me today.